Hello, folks, and welcome to another one of these. So, first of all, I just want to say I have heard plenty of feedback in terms of just how badly I scuffed the March of the Black Queen one. So, all good. Don't worry, we're about to screw this one up too. All right. So, first off, full disclosure, I definitely have not played the Ogre Battle side of things as much as I've played the Tactics Ogre side of things. So, there are going to be some specifics that I'm missing. I've been through this one maybe 5 or so times, done a couple challenge runs on it. Absolutely love it, but yeah, there's going to be some stuff I'm going to miss because there's a lot of details to cover. Alright, so in a quite literally random order, let's go ahead and do this thing. So, first off, Amazon's pretty obvious E tier over here. Actually, no, they're going to be a D tier because they eventually evolve into a Diana. But yeah, so back row archers, really only good in one row and pretty subpar even from that row. So they're not great. But yeah, we'll just go ahead and stick them over there. Not too much to say. Standard promotion out of soldier class. And well, that's about that, really. Just a lady with a bow. Next up, we got one step right above that in C tier. We got archers. They're basically the same as Amazons, except not as terrible. And yeah, they got their snazzy hat. They're actually working their way up there. They're trying to get their way up in the world. I would do the Diana next, actually, but I don't see it on the list yet. Oh well, we'll get there later. Alright, next up we got Beast Tamers. I'm going to put these over here for Beast, but no, also because they are friggin' beastly. I'm not really sure why. Despite monsters hitting pretty hard on their own, Beast Tamers must apparently boost their own attack for each other. Like, I don't know if they just get hyped up by seeing a bunch of shirtless dudes, but yeah, no, they seem to hit surprisingly hard in groups. Not sure what's up with that, but either way, there it is. Especially, you may notice the YMCA squad going on in the in the first Umel fight. Yeah, them suckers will probably rip somebody apart. I'm not sure why, but yeah, there they are. Alright, next up we got Berserkers. I feel like these are a C tier. Every time that I've tried to use one, they've had a unfortunate tendency to die. Like, very quickly. Even Aznabel, who pretty much has died and or zombified in every run I've done. I mean, granted, from what I've heard of the guy's backstory, if I can ever get to that point, it sounds like he probably deserved it. But either way, I mean, actually, come to think of it, the first time I went through the game, I did at least get his helmet, so there's that. But either way, yeah, as far as the Berserkers go, they're pretty much in C tier. Their defense isn't great. Their offense is slightly better than they were back in March of the Black Queen, I feel, but still very definite death fodder. Speaking of death fodder, we've got our Dark Knight guys over here that are going to go over in D tier, as they seem to always go for the series. Now, this isn't to say that the class itself is bad, it's just the fact that you can't really use it too much. So, they're basically like a midline between the Knight and the Paladin, in my book. However, the fact that you can only get 4 of them, and I've kind of idiotically sold all the unique equipment that you needed in order to make one every single time I've gone through, has basically given me the impression in my mind that they are impossible to get hold of. But you need a few pieces of armor and a Shaitan's Belova, which you basically have to annihilate all of Lindel's army in order to go get a bunch of those axes. And yeah, that's how you end up getting your Death Knights, Dark Knights, whatever you really want to call those things. Alright, and speaking of Lindel, semi-related here, but we've got Bisky the Beast, who's going over here in A tier. Now, I will once again point out that I have not personally recruited this guy yet, but I have looked up what their whole deal is, and they're a friggin' werewolf, and that's okay. But they're usually a boss. You can apparently get them to marry Lidl, so that's always funny. But yeah, no, they're just a funny dude, so they get to go in A tier. Also, they're a unique class that seems to hit pretty dang hard. I don't know what their actual debuffs are during the nighttime or anything like that, but as far as I can tell, they're a unique werewolf for OB64. Alright, next up on the list we got our standard clerics. They're going to hang out in D tier. There's going to be more improved versions of them later. They're alright for healing, but they can't really do much on their own. And actually, as a pretty good example of this, there is, funnily enough, a pacifist unit that can murder you in the early parts of the game. Kind of that interesting noob trap a couple fights into the game with the Umel rescue, where there's a 2 cleric and soldier squad who, functionally speaking, could never possibly have any hope of winning a fight on their own, but, well, to be honest, I've had more than one run that ended up getting a game over at that point, because that is your introduction to the fact that they are A, going to snipe your headquarters, and B, may send some really, really lame units to do it. So in that particular one, yeah, they can never win a fight on their own, but that's kind of the point. They end up losing a fight and then get launched sideways and then just, like, flank around your entire army. And they're like, oh, hey, look, free touchdown pass right here. We're just going to go for this. So yeah, still a D tier unit, but I have to say, I respect that design decision. Alright, next up we have fighters. They're also going to go in D tier, just like the Amazons, except for the front row. They're not useful in any other row. Standard dude, they run up, they hit stuff, first promotion out of soldiers. You really can't expect too much from them. Next up, we're going to go for B with the Fencers. Just like the Beastmasters, I feel like they're pretty solid on general offense. Supposedly, they've got a higher evasion rate, though I've personally not really seen that. There may not have been a large enough sample size to tell for sure, and I haven't seen what the modding folks have said about it. But yeah, no, it's a solid class. They get promoted into cooler stuff later. I'm just putting them in B tier because, again, early game offense is pretty solid. Alright, next up, we have the first S tier, because I see it here, and it just has to go, and that would be the almighty Death Chicken. You do not question the might of the almighty Death Chicken. The first time you see one, more than likely you're losing half your army. It's amazing who decided that these guys are balanced, but yeah, I love it. I love how janky these guys are. Like, oh, I'm sorry, did you take the northern path above the bridge? You shouldn't have done that. As two cockatrices just instantly wipe out everybody. God, I love that design decision so much. I don't care that it's not even balanced. Like, I just respect the balls to do that kind of design. Anyway, moving on next here, we have Gilbert, who's like a Beastmaster, but slightly better, but still in the same tier as a Beastmaster, so we'll go ahead and put him over there. Next up, we have... What the hell are you? I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure if that's a fairy or... No, that's not a fairy. This is a fairy. Alright. F tier for fairies. Ouch, these things are bad. So front row, they just slap. Back row, they do a buff. Potentially can be a pretty good combo with some certain units. Like, for example, combining with phalanxes is pretty strong, because they can render a phalanx nigh immortal while also actually giving them some decent offense for once. But unfortunately, yeah, for the most part, they are astoundingly awful. But yeah, that's why it was fun to do a challenge run with them. They do get their magic missiles and things, which is kind of cool. Fun note, by the way, even if you completely max out their stats to 100 across the board, they can do 50 damage. So, yeah, it's a move that technically has scaling. Holy crap, it's awful, though. Okay, moving on here. Next, we have... What are you? What are all these dragons? What do they do? We've got C with the Sleep Dragon. Pretty solid, but they can get knocked out of sleep. I think that's the Sleep Dragon. Maybe it's this one. I don't know. One of these is the Sleep Dragon. That looks a bit more blue. Okay, in that case, the Stun Dragon goes up to B. Next up, we have a Dark Dragon that does sleep. That gets to also hang out in C, because... reasons. I could be completely wrong about that one. Next we have the green one, and if that poisons, that gets to go down to F tier. But it also at least does some damage, so it goes to E tier. I'm completely assuming on those. I personally do not use dragons in OB64, so complete conjecture based on other games on that one. I just do know that poison is unbelievably bad, so... Actually, no, wait, I think that's this one. I don't know. One of these two is definitely the poisonous one. Local OB64 expert shares older knowledge. Alright. Next, in terms of stuff I've actually tried, we're gonna have the Cataphract here up in A tier. Okay, I know they don't have any push, but the fact that they're so dang unmovable is awesome. Not to mention, I love their design. It looks so solid. That's probably a little bit unreasonably thick for their equipment, so they should be getting really, really tired very easily, but, well, thankfully, that doesn't seem to come into play in gameplay, so awesome. Next up, we got Archmages with their big old AoE booms. That gets to go in A. Solid damage. They do pretty solidly from the back row. You know, give them some good spell books, they'll do some cool stuff. Next up, we got D for Dollmaster. Yeah, they're not so good. So yeah, Dollmasters, they're just kind of a funky bunch, because yeah, you're supposed to just use them for their doll attack. early on, which is especially weird because you can give them the Gallon doll, which tends to make them hit pretty hard with their doll. But then at the same time, you can give them a spell book of literally any kind, and suddenly they become a really good caster. I really respect the mechanics to, well, the fact that they kind of decided to make a class that's made to show you these different mechanics, in which they're like, hey, look, you can morph this class into other stuff. They can do these cool things. We swear they're good. But yeah, from what I've heard, most folks did not actually figure that out. So D for Dollmaster. Enchanters, basically same deal. They just do more of the same. Not to mention they seem to have grown out their hair a little bit, so I guess there's that. Also, I think that's Paul. Is that Paul? That might be Paul. I'm not sure. Alright, next up we have... What are you? Alright, we've got our Valkyries. They're going to be in C tier. They can be fairly... Just like the other kind of midline classes, they're good at adapting. You can move in the front and back row, just like you could in March of the Black Queen. However, they seem to constantly look pissed off, and also, just in general, they're a little bit subpar damage-wise. Freya's, on the other hand, A tier. I'm like 90% sure that's the Freya, right? Here, let me look down at the rest of the list. Is that the Freya? I'm going to say with a relative certain that's probably the Freya. Anyway, moving on, we've got... Got this dude over here, Mr. Solid Blade. He gets to go in A tier. So yeah, Ankasith, basically a cataphract. Alrighty then. Moving on, Debonair. Also A tier. Pretty solid unit. Hits pretty dang hard. Dude's majestic as always. You kind of get him pretty late into the game though, so there's that too. Alright, next up we got Golems, and I believe I just had all Golems as one thing, which is a kind of their average mid-tier kind of situation. He is a Rockman. He is made to take hits. He definitely seems to take hits a reasonable bit better than he did back in March of the Black Queen, so there's that. Next up, we have Zombies, and I'd personally call these a C tier. They don't do very much damage. They don't really evolve anywhere, but they do regenerate, and just their ability to regenerate over and over and over makes them a pretty solid unit that kind of makes you wonder why they don't use dead units more often, actually. Because, yeah, they're still very strong. They can get exercised, but, yeah, just by themselves, they're pretty dang strong. Wait a minute, that wasn't the Freya, that's the Dragon Tamer. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm dumb. Alright, you get on B tier. You're kind of okay, but you get to hang out in B tier. This was the Freya. I was like, dang it, I knew there was something cool about the Freya I'm missing here. I was thinking the ears, because you see, like, they upgrade their plumes for, like, little dragon ears. That's what I was looking for. I'm sorry. Like I said, with OB64, I freaking love this game, but it's not one of the ones that I've played the most of yet, so... So basically anytime that I do practice runs or whatever else, I typically do them on handhelds, and in this case, the phone would usually be the best option, which, by the way, I just want to point out, when it comes to emulation on the Vita, which is what I usually, like, literally every other game on the Vita in the series is playable on a Vita, except for OB64. That's the only reason I haven't played as much of it as the others. That said, I think that's about to change, because recently there were a few updates to the Daedalus emulator, and yeah, shockingly, it's playable. It's not pleasant, but it's playable, and I just can't be happier about that. Like, it's so good. So this literally happened like right before I started this whole thing, so good stuff there. All right, moving on. Also, wait, that was the upgraded Dragon Tamer. This is the basic Dragon Tamer, I think. Whatever, they're still about the same. I mean, they're slightly different versions of the same thing. I'm going to feel real stupid if those are just completely different units. Alright, next up we got the Centurion. Now, I know, Legions are not very good, but I love the idea so much, you know? They're so cool. Just cool factor puts them in B. They're not necessarily very good units on their own. Their overall gimmick pretty much takes your entire party size and then really doesn't give you much in return, but it's such a cool mechanic, you know? So, they get to be in B tier anyway. Alright, next up we got, who do we got here? Let's put Dio, probably in B tier, because he's kind of a bastard. Next we got Dragoons, easy S tier. Like, they carve through everything. Their whole quest to actually get them. Like, normally I would count it against them that it takes you a while to go get them, but let's be honest, it's pretty awesome that you have to go back in time to fight a ghost dragon. Like, what the hell? You can only have one of one class. You can only upgrade one generic to it. And you gotta go back in time and fight a like, dead dragon to go rip a sword out of its belly. What is that? At least that's what I always assumed was happening there. Alright, next we got another golem. It also goes in C tier, because all golems are permanently mid tier. Next we got another A tier, and that's going to be Gorgons, because they can petrify, and petrification is terrifying. However, unlike the cockatrice, they can only petrify one unit. Alright, and now for the one that has gotten me minorly crucified over March of the Black Queen here, and that would be the Gremlins. They're also C tier. They actually do put people to sleep in this one. Turns out they just... Okay, I still remember them doing a sleep animation, and I still remember seeing that on their sheet, like their sprite sheet. I don't know what I'm missing with Gremlins, but I could have sworn they put people to sleep in March of the Black Queen. I don't know, but anyway, we'll put them over there. Next up, we got Hawkmen. They are going to be an A tier. Yeah, they're not Raven Men yet, but it doesn't matter. They will happily snipe your headquarters regardless. Not to mention, they always seem tougher than you'd really reasonably expect. Next up, we got Griffins. I feel like they're kind of a C tier this time around. Like, early on, they're relatively... They've got okay attack, but they're not super threatening. Once they upgrade to the Appenicus here, I feel like that goes up to C because they become somewhat more threatening. But still, like, they don't quite pack the punch that they do in some of the other entries. Okay, here we go. Here's Paul. Right. So, I mean, Paul managed to get his friend turned into a rock, so he gets to go in F tier. All right, next up we got Leia. I feel like she's a pretty solid A tier through most of the game. I don't believe she actually gets a portrait upgrade for her second tier, so this is just assuming she's already at her second tier. She's basically a Freya, but yeah. She's like a Freya and Centurion mixed into one, so pretty solid there. Next up, we got Magnus in his default class, which I feel is a bit of an E tier. He hits reasonably hard because he's got protagonist powers, but other than that, and... okay, even the modding scene is a little bit off on trying to explain whether or not he's actually immune to petrification. Some people say they've seen it. I personally have never seen it, unless he got insanely lucky over and over and over and over, because I thought I tested this. But yeah, some people are insisting that he can in fact get petrified, so I don't know if he's immune to instant kill moves. But anyway, all he can do is run up and hit stuff, and he can occasionally cast from the back row if you've got an elemental sword, but aside from that, he's kind of, well, elemental sword in the back row, I should say. So he's a pretty standard upgraded fighter kind of situation. Can't even equip some of the extra items that some other units get, so kind of iffy there. However, his upgraded version, well, this one's the Gladiator, this one is the General. Yeah. He basically gets Centurion powers, he gets a major stat buff across the board. Very solid. Alright, we got another zombie here. See, this is just like the female zombie. However, the female zombie is trying to be all seductive. Male zombie looks like he's drunk, so he gets to go down in E tier. He loses 2 tiers just because he really shouldn't have been drinking on the job. Next up, we have the secondary protagonist from March of the Black Queen here. So, Europia gets to go in A tier. Again, good. Actually, yeah, no, she gets to go there. It's alright. You know, solid fighter, caster kind of situation, except she's basically like a Freya that uses swords, as far as I recall. Destin, I'm going to put in B tier. Not necessarily for... I guess he gets to be in B for bandana. I don't really know what's going on with that weird bandana situation. It kind of looks like he's got some kind of rim cover just above his head, just kind of wedged up there. That all said, he's basically just a hard hitter. He's kind of the same thing as basic version Magnus or Dio, except with a two-hander. So, he's mostly here for morale bonuses, I think. Alright, next up, we have the Knight. Solid C tier, like most of the other secondary promotions. Nothing special. They run up, they hit stuff. Whoopity-doo-dah. And in fact, I believe we're actually about to launch into other tiers here, so we're going to have to go expand this size a little bit. Let's move this up here real quick. We do one of these kinds of things, so it's slightly smaller now. Oh crap, that's the first time this has actually happened. We're going to have an extra row. Alright, so next up, we're going to have, who the hell are you? You're a ghost. You get to go in the pile of other ghosts. They're casters, though. They're kind of in the back row. I feel like frontline undead are a bit more useful, so I get to go over there. Next up we have ogres. They're basically like shinier knights in some ways. Early on they're a little bit overpowered, but they kind of drop off immediately afterwards. That's why they get to go over there. Also, I don't know who that previous guy was, but this guy's Gilbert. Who the hell's this guy? Well, I don't know. Anyway, bald beard guys get to hang out in the B tier. Next up we got Hellhounds. C tier, they're not as strong as they were in March of the Black Queen, but they do still do a pretty solid job. However, the Mega Pug gets to go in A tier because that thing is awesome. Because it's a triple-headed Cerberus Pug, not to mention you can give it to somebody to, well, to functionally get some kind of magical weapons of mass destruction from a toddler. I'm not entirely sure what that's about. Alright, next up in A tier, we got ninjas. Those ones I have seen running around with a higher chance of evasion and crits. However, yeah, their entire setup revolves around critting and not dying. Ninja Masters are reasonably threatening, so I'm going to put them over in B. Next up, we've got Mr. Aznable, and I'm going to put him in D tier for dead, because he seems to always die. Next up, we've got Ceridan, C tier. Kind of standard wizard guy. I didn't really see anything super special about the guy. Next up, one tier above the other ogres here, we've got the kind of upgraded ogre guys, just because they eventually drop an ogre blade, if it's the ones that I'm thinking of. Man, I'm going to feel real stupid if all this information's completely wrong. That's okay. That's my natural state of being anyhow. Moving on, we've got Meridia. Like many of the other spellcasters, however, she gets to go up to A tier. They would seem to be in a good mood. And you know what? I'm pretty sure everybody can appreciate that. Next up, we got Lidl. She gets to go up in A tier next to Mr. Bisky up here. So yeah, apparently those two end up somehow being a couple if you set everything up just right, which is just kind of hilarious. So they get to hang out up there. Also, it seems like I have to go ahead and increase the size of this thing yet again, because we're running way too many units here. And this, by the way, is exactly why I probably won't be able to do a class tier list for Felseal, because that sucker would be like 80 pages long. Okay. Next up we have... what are you? We've got some kind of white dragon thing. I mean, you seem like something that would be in a B tier, right? Sure. Let's put you up there. This thing has gone off my screen at this point. Neat. Let's fix some of this real quick. That professional quality, though. Alright. No, you hang out over there. And yes, I was researching what on earth it is the vampires actually do in this one. Because, unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a very solid answer on that. Okay. Next up, we've got these red dragons. That's the upgraded fire dragon, if I recall correctly, and Crimson Note is scary, so they get to hang out up there. Next, we have paladins. Next A unit. They can heal. They can slap real good. They get to go up there. We got our upgraded healers. They get to go to A tier because they can do their mass heals. Those are pretty fantastic. Allegedly, the princess is an A tier unit as well, getting their double moves from before. In fact, they probably go up to S tier. Apparently, they're quite a bit nerfed from March of the Black Queen. I have not personally managed to get a hold of one as of yet. I really should get on that. Next up, we got the Phalanx, which goes into D for defensive. But no, they're... no, they get to go to C. It's just, when it comes to upgraded spears, you get more than you'd probably think in most runs. And, well, I mean, they're a decent unit that's able to get a hold of them, so why not? Or that's able to actually use them. Alright, what are you? I believe this is the Lich, right? Looks like a Lich. You get to go over here. Actually, no, they get downgraded in rank because their style rating has gone down from the rest of the series. What are they even doing? So yeah, they get to hang out over there. Still a pretty solid spellcaster and all that kind of thing from all accounts that I've heard. However, apparently they're a bit of a pain to get a hold of, and you can only get a hold of 2. Alright, next up we got Pumpkinheads. I don't feel like they're as strong in this one because you don't really see as many cases where you just, like, you run into a complete solid wall of a unit. Alright, then we have the Sachuros. From what I recall, these were an A tier in terms of what they could do. I could be completely wrong on that. Whatever, that's been a running theme. Wait, these are angels, aren't they? Hot dang, I'm stupid. Alright, whatever. In that case, you go over there, yeah, you're fine in C tier. Where the hell is... Do I not have a Valkyrie in here? How is that even possible? Alright, whatever. Let's keep this train wreck rolling. Next up, we got soldiers. They're amazing. They get to go in F tier. Next, we have... I don't even remember your name. Purple hair lady. You seem like a siren, I think. Yeah, B tier if they're a siren. They're good if you give them a spell book. Otherwise, they're kind of a okay spellcaster. Next up, we have this guy. He looks like somebody that would like a C tier, right? Yeah, that seems legit. Next up, we have witches. Or no, this is a sorceress. Yeah, C tier. Standard second tier caster kind of situation. Swordmasters. I feel like they're pretty threatening. I'm going to put them in A tier. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and demote the Fencer down to C tier, put the Swordmaster in B tier. Next up, we have Vad. He's pretty awesome. However, due to the fact that he stubbornly gets himself killed repeatedly, and, well, all but a couple runs that I've done, he gets to go to D tier for dead. However, then his awesomeness gets him upgraded back up to B tier. He's alright. He's alright. He's a solid unit. Not many units specialize in claws. He's like a ninja that isn't as terrible. Here we go. Here's the Valkyries. That's why, you know what? I remember that they looked pissed off, but not that quite pissed off. They get to go in C tier. However, as an apology, I'm going to upgrade them to B tier. So, clearly, Valkyries, just as good as Dio. That's fine. This is a completely logical list. Makes total sense, and I don't get these things wrong ever. Alright, now we go to C tier with the Stone Golem, because once again, they are a golem. Next, we have our next S tier, and that is going to be Troy. His awesomeness just puts him straight up to the top. This guy has somehow time-traveled back from the future, so secretly, it's believed he's got a musket somewhere. Guy's clearly from Spain. Not sure what that's about. Next up, we have the Raven Men, who also get to go to S tier, because them suckers are, once again, just like the Hawkmen, freakishly tough for some reason. I don't know why they can take so much of a punishment. They're frickin' birds, for God's sake. Why are they heavy units? So yeah, they get to be over there. We got standard spellcasters over here. Wizards go that away. What are you, a friggin' baby dragon or something? I don't know. D tier for dragon. Oh, you're a baby dragon. No, you get to go to E tier, because you got to be less than whatever this thing is. Are there worms? Have there been worms in this one this entire time? I don't know. Next we got witches. Now, normally I would put them in like a C tier or something like that. However, the last 3 times that I've run through, for some reason I've had witches that have been bizarrely successful. So yeah, for whatever reason, they seem to be a very effective shutdown unit, so I'm going to put them in B tier. Next we got the vampire. C tier. I've seen a few complaints that there can't be female vampires in the game. Also, you really have to go through a whole convoluted process to get them, and unlike the Dragoon, it's not really that cool, and also is time-dependent. Alright, next up we got more dragons. I think you're probably in C tier, you usually are. There we go. Oh, this crazy Hydra-looking thing. Yeah, them suckers are scary. I'm gonna put that in A tier. I remember that thing murdering me a few times. This dragon looks like a B tier. It's got this weird, goofy jaw thing, but it's probably scary. What's this? Oh, okay, this is basically just the organized screen that gets to be in the F tier. I really hope if they make a remake that they fix that UI screen, because everything else is amazing, but that UI screen is just terrible. Alright, let's move this over, or the deploy screen, I should say. Alright, you can go over here, because you've got your flappies. I don't know what the hell you are. Next up, we got another skeleton. By the way, if it looks like I'm rushing, yes, because I'm expecting my daughter's school bus here any moment. What are the other undead units? I feel like you're a B tier. because you're like the other undead units, but you bothered to properly clean up before showing up to work. Alright, and then we got upgraded Hawkmen. In which case, yeah, actually this one goes back to A tier. So yeah, the ultimate Hawkmen are just 9 invincible killing beasts. That's just terrifying. We've got this dragon thing. I don't know why it looks like it's stuck in a pipe, but we're going to stick it in B tier. I think this is Karth, in which case he's A for making the right choice. Next we have... What the hell are you? You look familiar... Dang it, who the hell is this? I don't know, they look like a B tier. We're going to stick them in the B tier. Next up we got Katreda, I believe. It's a solid healer, but they are still a healer, so we'll put them in C. But yeah, they're an upgraded healer more or less. Next we have... I think this is Norn, isn't it? It's either Norn or... what's her face? I think it's Norn. And then lastly, we have the ultimate kill machine, and that is the Sphinx. So easily the S-est of the S tiers. Yeah, apparently there's one section in the game where there's 2 Sphinxes that have a guaranteed chance to combo attack and insta-murder any party they run into. Cool. Great choice. Alright, so... this was a complete dumpster fire of a tier list. Let me know what you think. I'm almost certainly going to have to redo this one better. Just, yeah. Give me a few more runs, and I'll do a way better one, okay? I'm only doing this right now to complete off the set of them. Because admittedly, yeah, there's so much to OB64, but I personally didn't grow up with it, and yeah, I only finally got to try it a couple of years ago. I've done a few runs, but it has to be entirely on PC, which for a game this slow isn't ideal. And yeah, now that it's actually possible to play on the go. Actually, one question that's come up before is why on earth I don't just play it on the phone. I do, but the problem is my phone's battery is garbage, and the charging port is pretty much broken, and, well, I can't really afford to replace it right now. So, until then, and yeah, my tablet thing won't run an emulator, so boo. So that all said, I hope you enjoyed this little dumpster fire situation. I just noticed that the music has been way too quiet this entire time. Awesome. Every part of this is just absolute top tier quality. And yeah, thank you guys for putting up with this garbage, and I will see you next time. Take care.